This is my only job there. You gotta balance the.
Welcome to the 373rd meeting of the Baltimore Regional Transportation Board. Today we have 4 action items that we will consider together, and then we will ask MDOT Secretary Weaverfield to give us an update on the consolidated transportation program. We now move to the action items. Mr. Lang, please introduce the 4 resolutions. We will then ask for a single motion and a second to approve. We will then field questions from the BRTB member and then public before proceeding to a single vote on all the resolutions. Mr. Lang, please proceed.
1 second, Madam Chair, while we get the presentation up. Today, the BRTB is being asked to consider resolutions 25-25 through resolutions 25-28. There's going to be, again, 4 resolutions that the board is going to be considering. We'll consider them all in one motion and one vote. We'll also have a public comment period, as was mentioned. First resolution is the adoption of the transportation planning budget. Previously, you had adopted the BMC budget. Now this is the budget on the transportation side through the Baltimore Regional Transportation Board. This is the fiscal year 2026 through 2027 budget. So this is technically known as the Unified Planning Work Program. That's what's identified in the Metropolitan Planning Regulations. The total budget is about $10.8 million. This does fund BMC transportation staff to the tune of about $7.1 million. There's some funding for each one of the local jurisdictions to do tasks that are of a regional nature to the tune of about $480,000. And then there are consultant activities to the tune of about $3.2 million. So we did a 30-day public comment period on this planning work budget, as we do every year. That ran between February 8th and March 9th. We did receive a number of comments this year, and we were really actually very excited with the just the amount of attention that people were paying to the work that we're doing here on transportation within the region. Those comments we ultimately all documented. We provided responses to them, and those went to both the technical committee and to your empowered representatives, and then also went back to the commenters and are being posted online. So those comments generally touched on the request for more funding for things like sidewalks, bike lanes, and public transit. They did want us to try to beef up our staff as opposed to using consultant activities. One of the issues we have is that some of our programs are so niche that we don't have staff that are skilled in these specific areas. That's why we tend to have a larger consultant budget than some of the other planning. Also, there's a general request to try to accelerate the development of transit within the region as opposed to highway development. And then also we received some very lengthy comments from a number of different organizations, including an organization known as BaltPop. I had a meeting with them. We're hoping that we might be able to incorporate not only their comments, but some of the other comments that came into subsequent budgets, or as we're doing a reconciliation at the September budget. So the focus areas that were identified by your staff members and the state agencies, you can see up on the board, these are the general consultant activities. The first one is looking at project feasibility studies. We all know that you adopt priority letters every single year, but you don't necessarily have the money to kind of develop and bring those into a little bit more detail. And as the state is working towards developing their prioritization process, we think we here at the regional organization may be able to work with your staff to develop feasibility studies so we have better ideas on cost estimates and different types of areas to potentially implement these projects a little bit faster. Just get them a leg up in the process. Other things were including crash reduction and speed monitoring software. Some items have been identified by different sheriff departments. Things like freight model updates. There's a bridge in Carroll County on the Patapsco Regional Greenway, the Henryton Road Bridge that we're looking to try to move forward. And then things like transportation land use connection grants, basically smaller projects that again, you don't have the funds to do at the local level. We bring those up to 30% design so that they're eligible for both state and federal grant funding. There were a couple quick little changes to the draft planning budget. We included all of the public comment period and all of the advertising we did for that. We did add some additional planning studies that were recommended, and we made some minor changes to the budgets based upon some of the public comments. Moving on to the next resolution, 25-26. Every year as we adopt a new planning budget, we also adopt a new disadvantaged business enterprise goal for fiscal year 26. We utilize the MDOT Secretary's Office as the process for goal setting because they're a substantially similar market to the work that we do here in our planning department. So the recommendation from MDOT is a goal of 28.4%. I can happily say that over the last 6-month period, we actually recognized a 41% DBE participation rate in our activities. And over the past 2 years, we've averaged over 35% DBE participation within our planning activities. So again, even though we're only adopting a 28.4% goal, we always strive to do better than that, and we've been successful over the past 2 years. Next is the first of 2 what we call amendments to our transportation improvement program. That's kind of the corollary to the state's CTP program, where we actually go in and program actual dollars over the next couple of years. The first one is operating assistance for MTA systems. Basically, when MTA obligates a grant, they have to make sure that that money is in the year of obligation, and typically that goes hand in hand with the CTP process. In this case, it's adopting additional operating funds for both Carroll County and then also Baltimore County. That goes to the tune of about $783,000 in federal funding that is matched on the state and local side by a similar number, $783,000. Then finally, we have a TIP amendment. Again, in Carroll County, we have a bridge replacement upper Beckleysville Road over Murphy Run. This project was in our transportation improvement program in previous years for engineering in 2023 and then construction in 2024. Ultimately, we're trying to adopt the final balances to get that project completed, which will add an additional $231,000 in engineering and bring the construction total up to $1 million. That is 100% federally funded. Here's a little map of exactly where the bridge is. Unfortunately, we did hear that that bridge needed to be closed. So our executive committee did do an emergency action to try to make sure that the engineering could continue to move forward. But we're still bringing forward this amendment process to the formal board for construction funding also. This again was identified within the 2021 biennial bridge inspection project that had significant section loss in the beams. Again, there was a weight limit imposed. Recently, we've had a closure of that bridge, so it is almost an emergency measure in terms of adopting this. Again, total cost is going to be $800,000 for engineering and about $1 million on the construction side. So with that, we have some contacts in case you have questions about some of the specific items, including myself, but then also Jamie Richardson, the manager of Baltimore Planning at MTA, and then Kristen Ziegenfuss, the bridge program manager at Carroll County. But now we turn back to Madam Chair. We say that these resolutions have been recommended for approval by the technical committee, and we now ask the BRTB to consider these resolutions 25-25 through 25-28. Madam Chair.
Thank you. I now ask a member to move for approval of the resolutions and a member to motion a second.
So moved.
Got a second? Okay, right. Does any BRTB member have any questions or comments on the resolutions? We now ask if any member of the public has any questions or comments on the resolutions.
Madam Chair, currently we do not have anyone requesting to speak in the chat box, and I'll turn to the audience. Is there anyone who would request to speak on any of these resolutions? Seeing none, we will turn it back to you to call for the vote.
We will now proceed to vote. Members, when I ask, please all indicate aye. Indicate aye. You're an aye. Do we have any nays? I say the ayes have it.
Thank you.
Next, we welcome MDOT Secretary Paul Wiedefeld to update the board on the Maryland Consolidated Transportation Program.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. Happy to be here to provide an update. As you know, during the session, which allows us basically to focus on preserving the system, making improvements to the system, and basis for the state. Thanks to Governor Moore's leadership and obviously for the General Assembly, the President stepped out, but obviously leadership down in Annapolis did a fantastic job, but very, very difficult circumstances to deal with this issue. And basically, again, it allows us to make smart investments, improve safety of the transportation network, preserve our system, and drive the economy. The legislative session, state lawmakers approved more than $400 million in additional transportation revenue per year. This allows MDOT to match all available federal funding to deliver nearly $700 million in additional capital spending annually. It's not in the federal dollars. It allows us, we were in danger of not meeting our debt coverage, so it allows us to sell debt, which drives that number up to $700 million per year. So obviously in a challenging budget environment, the governor's budget prioritizes the safety of all who use the system and advances projects that will support all users. For example, funding helps the State Highway Administration advance design for more pedestrian safety action plans, PSAP program, you may have heard that. It includes pedestrian safety projects along sections of Philadelphia Boulevard in Aberdeen and Crane Highway in Glen Burnie. The additional funding also helps us advance more quick build complete street pilot projects, such as those that went up along parts of Route 1 in Howard County and in Bel Air at the intersection of North Main and Gordon Streets, and the installation of new traffic signal crosswalks at Dr. Patel Drive in Elk Ridge. That will be completed later this year. MDOT is also making historic investments in transit across the Baltimore region. With the new revenues, the Maryland Transit Administration has the necessary funds to rebuild and modernize the light rail system, the existing light rail system. This represents the first significant investment in the system in decades. The total investment will nearly be $1.4 billion to rehabilitate this 32-year-old system. The overhaul includes fully utilizing the $213 million federal grant to replace the entire light rail vehicle fleet with more accessible and frequent high-quality service. In addition to the vehicles, we need to do a complete rebuild of the rest of the system. That includes the stations, the tracks, the overhead power lines, and maintenance facilities. So in effect, we're building a new line for the existing one since today. When the complete program will reduce unplanned service disruptions, increase reliability, and ensure MTA riders of all abilities have access to the system. As we saw in the survey, that's the number one issue is reliability for people who use transit. The additional funding also includes maintenance and rehab of the bus system, as well as support for specific repairs to the most critical needs of the Baltimore Metro system, the subway system, including station repairs, communication system projects, escalators, which is a very large issue for our customers, and platform rehabs. And as you may know, we currently have roughly over $500 million in replacing all the vehicles in the subway system that is underway, and we're actually testing those vehicles today. Together, MTA's light rail, subway, and the historic system preservation improvements will create a solid foundation for transit to thrive in Baltimore. I personally believe, and I think you share this belief, that having a strong foundation in place is fundamental so that we can continue to have discussions on ways to grow the system. But if you're not performing well with the existing system, it's often hard to take on new things as well. While we rebuild the physical infrastructure, I ask that your administrations to join Secretary Flora, Secretary of Planning, and Secretary Day of Housing and Community Development and me in replanning and rezoning transit station areas for thriving, inclusive, and economically successful transit stations. We appreciate the strong partnership with the city at the State Center and Reisterstown, as well as in Arundel County at Odenton and Cromwell. Successful TODs will increase ridership, strengthen the return on investment on our transit system, and grow our economy, housing stock, and tax base. All the same issues we just heard in the survey as well. Every quarter, Maryland, including all the Baltimore region, will benefit from their transportation revenues. Several projects that will benefit by being restored, funding to advance the next phase of work include Maryland 18 in Queen Anne's County, the I-97 Tismo project in Anne Arundel County, I-70 in Baltimore Howard County, just to cite a few. I do want to talk a little bit about some of the other modes besides the transit highway, particularly state highway, and one is the Key Bridge. Obviously, as you saw in the survey, again, the impact it has, particularly in Baltimore City and Baltimore County and Anne Arundel County and through the region as a whole. It's a huge priority for us to get that done as quickly as possible. We have the contractor on board. We're finalizing both the cost and schedule with the contractor, Kiwi Construction, and we anticipate demolition of remaining bridge structures during the summer, with the construction starting shortly thereafter. Other modes, the port has bounced back. Obviously, we took quite a hit with the closing of the port for several months, but it is starting to come back in terms of volume and cargo, particularly, and also in cruise ships. And then the airport, with these dollars, we're able to tackle some of the basic preservation needs at the airport, as well as an MBA, particularly some of the technology side of MBA and cybersecurity protection, given all the information that they have. In closing, I'm excited about what we will accomplish in 25, and really the entire 5-year capital program. And I'm certain these investments that we're making today will create a safer, more reliable transportation system for the entire Baltimore region in the future. So with that, thank you for listening. I'm going to take any questions you have.
Anyone have any questions? Okay, next is our public participation opportunity. We now offer the public a chance to speak to the board. Mr. Lang, has anyone indicated that they would like to speak today?
Madam Chair, no one has signed up to speak in the back of the room. Currently, there's no one requesting to speak in the chat box. I will look around the audience to see if anyone would just like to address the board. See no one requesting to speak to the board.
Is there anyone else who wishes to address the board at this time? Please indicate so. Hearing none, we will move to close the meeting. I will call for a vote to close the meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Anybody want to stay?